remembering June 4th at a time of political uncertainty for Hong Kong. Boy at the center of latest Hong Kong mainland controversy returns home. And former FIFA vice president wants to tell all and fears for his life. Good evening. The organizer of the Victoria Park Candlelight Vigil commemorating the Tiananmen Square crackdown said more than 130,000 people took part in the event tonight. The turnout rate was lower than last year, and some groups chose to organize their own events to remember the crackdown. It's been 26 years since the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown took place, but people in Hong Kong have not forgotten what happened. Crowds flocked to Victoria Park this evening to take part in the annual candlelight vigil to commemorate the crackdown.
It is to demonstrate to the entire world, and especially to the communist China, that people in Hong Kong do not forget, nor do we forgive. We remember very clearly what happened 26 years ago, and we are not ready to let it go.
The organizer read out the names of the victims' mothers who passed away before the crackdown's been vindicated. They also sang songs to remember those who died. Participants also took the chance to demand for democracy. They tore up and burned copies of the Basic Law and urged Hong Kong people to take control of their own fate.
The turnout, according to our estimation, amount to 135,000, which quite a significant figure. Although it is slightly lower than the turnout last year, but remember that last year is the 25th anniversary. Is just the passing of the quarter of a century. So it is understandable why the turnout rate is a little bit lower. But still, this turnout rate is higher than the average figure in the last 25 years.
However, this Victoria Park Vigil was not the only event held this year to mark the anniversary of the crackdown. Some groups chose to hold their own events to mark the anniversary due to disagreement over one of the vigil organizers' slogans, "Build a Democratic China." The University of Hong Kong Students' Union is one of them. It held its own event on campus this evening. Some participants said they chose not to go to Victoria Park because of the current political situation.
I recognize myself as Hong Kongers, but not Chinese. For the Victoria Park, I think it emphasized my Chinese identity, but I deny at this such political situation. I just don't think that I should recognize myself as Chinese.
Another two groups, Hong Kong Localism Power and Civic Passion, held their own commemoration events in Tsim Sha Tsui. After the candlelight vigil at Victoria Park ended, some people marched from there to the liaison office of the central government in Western. Some of the groups included the Hong Kong Federation of Students and the League of Social Democrats. The police said the rally was unauthorized and raised yellow warning banners. In response, the ralliers raised their own black banners with the words, "We take control of our own fate," written on them. A mainland-born boy who turned himself into local authorities earlier, claiming he had been staying illegally in Hong Kong for the past 9 years, is back on the mainland tonight. This after he asked the Immigration Department this afternoon for voluntary repatriation. 12-year-old mainland-born Siu Yao Wei arrived at the Kowloon Bay office of the Immigration Department this afternoon with his grandmother. His grandmother told the media that the boy was seeking voluntary repatriation. After immigration officials checked that the boy will have a place to stay on the mainland, the pair was then immediately driven to the Lo Wu control checkpoint. It's believed that Siu's relatives on the mainland were there to meet the boy after he crossed the border. This comes just weeks after the boy turned himself into the authorities, saying he had been staying in Hong Kong illegally for the past 9 years. At the time, Siu and his grandmother, with the assistance of lawmaker Chan Yun-han, asked the immigration authorities to exercise their discretionary power to allow the boy to stay in the city. The grandma said the boy was abandoned by his parents, and when he was 3 years old, he came to Hong Kong on a two-way permit that was issued to another person. Siu was then granted a temporary permit to stay. People who are against the boy being allowed to stay often went to the home of Siu and his grandmother to disturb them. This put a lot of pressure on them. Lawmaker Chan Yun-han, who has been criticized for putting the boy and his grandmother under the spotlight, said she respects the pair's decision. She denied that she's responsible for what happened to the boy in the end. Siu's grandmother, who's been accused of aiding and abetting the boy to contravene his conditions of stay, is now still under investigation. 75 people have been confirmed dead in the Yangtze River cruise ship disaster on the mainland, and more than 300 others are still missing. Diane Cho reports.
It's been 3 days since the Eastern Star capsized in the Hubei section of the Yangtze River. Rescuers cut 3 holes into the hull of the overturned vessel and probed for signs of any life, but there's been no luck. While the hope to find more survivors stretches thinner as every minute passes, officials are refusing to declare the rescue mission over. Cranes are holding the ferry in place while some 200 divers continue their search underwater. The ferry skipper and chief engineer, who were among the first to be rescued, have been detained for questioning. Mainland media reports say the 52-year-old captain has 35 years of nautical experience and was commended by the Chongqing Eastern Shipping Corporation for excellence in service last year. Authorities are demanding a thorough examination of the company's entire fleet. The Eastern Star, which was carrying more than 450 people, most of them senior citizens, was a shallow draft boat not designed to withstand heavy winds. It capsized in a storm that's said to have packed winds of up to 120 kilometers per hour. This could be the country's deadliest boat accident in decades, and authorities are bracing for fallout. Anxious family members from across the country have rushed here trying to get more information about their loved ones. This man and his wife travelled for 10 hours from Nanjing to find out what happened to his mother, and there's simply been no news yet. He questioned the efficacy of the rescue work, complaining that a lot of experts have joined non-stop discussions about the operations, but they haven't proven their worth yet. Authorities have arranged accommodation for about 500 relatives of the missing persons, but they're only able to get information from news reports. Security is tight and journalists have been barred from accessing hotels where they're staying. In fact, reporters have been given very limited access around the area since day one, with the roads to the disaster site still closed off and heavily guarded. Diane To, TVB News.
Top government officials have begun meeting Democratic lawmakers in another effort to gain their support for the political reform package. But as Owen Fong reports, the first round of talks failed to produce any breakthroughs.
This afternoon, 4 Civic Party lawmakers met with Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam and Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Raymond Tam. But the talks failed to narrow differences between the two sides.
They deliver exactly according to our expectation. They stayed within the 31st August NPCSC framework, and they stayed within what the 3 directors had said on Sunday in Shenzhen.
Leung believes the government has arranged the latest round of talks with no intention to bridge the gap. Instead, it's for the sole purpose of showing the public they've tried their best to sway the pan-democrats.
Meanwhile, medical sector lawmaker Leung Ka-Lau, who earlier stated he'll vote against the package, met with Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying.
It's just an exchange of ideas. And those ideas, I think, is mostly has been mentioned before and has been considered already. Yeah. So the situation, there's not yet any major change.
Another legislator invited to meet with the chief executive was Charles Mok of the Professional Commons. But Mok turned down the invitation because he doesn't want the public to speculate on any backroom deals in a meeting with Leung alone. Instead, he will meet with the Chief Secretary for Administration together with Kenneth Leung, also of the Professional Commons. Earlier, a number of groups have expressed intention to stage rallies outside the Legislative Council complex when the reform package is put to the vote, raising concerns about security around the area. The government's administration wing recently installed 3 new closed-circuit TV cameras outside the east wing of the central government offices. The LegCo Secretariat earlier also announced a series of new security measures, but some of them, such as new gates around the entrances, will not be ready at the time of the vote. Owen Fung, TVB News.
Health officials in South Korea have confirmed 5 more cases of Middle East respiratory syndrome, raising the total to 35. The number of people who have been quarantined in the country now stands at 1,667. Officials say the new total includes 2 more healthcare workers who treated infected patients and a visitor who had contact with the first confirmed patient at the same ward. 2 deaths have been directly confirmed as a result of MERS, and hundreds of schools have been temporarily closed. And Chicago scored twice in the span of 2 minutes in the third period to stun Tampa Bay in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. The Blackhawks' unlikely scorers were 20-year-old Teuvo Teravainen and Antoine Vermette. Goalie Corey Crawford made 22 saves. Chicago is gunning for its 3rd title in 6 seasons. The best-of-7 series stays in Tampa for Game 2. And allegations and disclosures of corruption within FIFA continue to unfold in the wake of President Sepp Blatter's resignation announcement on Tuesday. Yesterday, former FIFA Executive Committee member Chuck Blazer told a U.S. federal court that he and others in football's governing body accepted bribes to vote for South Africa to host the 2010 World Cup. Alan Buckner has the story.
Chuck Blazer was the number 2 official of football's North and Central American and Caribbean region from 1990 to 2011. Prosecutors in New York unsealed a 40-page document of a hearing in November 2013 in which Blazer pleaded guilty to racketeering and other charges. He told the court of his bribe-taking surrounding the South Africa vote, also implicating former FIFA Vice President